That's right. After spending so much time analyzing and collecting my thoughts on Ninjago's latest season, I have come to the conclusion that Crystalized broke me. To say Ninjago's newest season disappointed me is an understatement. This is by far the worst piece of entertainment I've seen from 2022. After being so hyped for the follow-up to Seabound, eagerly reacting to all the trailers, and anticipating what is meant to be a satisfying conclusion to a 15-season storyline, I was completely disillusioned by how much it destroys what makes Ninjago simply Ninjago. In fact, it is not even worthy of being a Ninjago season.
All it earns is this.
If anyone from the show is watching this part is satirical. Don't take this loser seriously. So, how did we get here? How did Crystalized reach the point of failure? Well, it all started with this bitch. Excuse my French. I always have strong feelings regarding Harumi. In the Uni trilogy, Harumi was a masterfully crafted character whose writing is on a Shakespearean level. On the other hand, Crystalized Harumi is the equivalent of fast food. It's quite embarrassing to see this complex and compelling villain being downgraded into a pathetic and pitiful caricature with a weak-ass redemption that ruins her whole story.
And you know what? I can't deal with this anymore. I'm sorry. I'm out of here. I can't take this anymore.
Speaking of ruined, let's talk about Lloyd Garmadon. You know, the destined green ninja, the fabled wielder of golden power, and the grandson of the first Spinjitzu master, who is reduced into a whiny and useless hero with anger issues. I would even say calling him a hero is a big stretch considering how much he enjoys beating up innocent civilians just because he feels like it and is a dick to everyone he sees. Not to mention how unlikable he is to Garmadon because he's so needlessly mean and hurtful to him. Lloyd's characterization in Crystalized is way too contrived and out of character. Don't even get me started on his Uni arc, which wastes this cool new power over some lame moral debate about why he shouldn't use the Oni form. While we are on the subject of being useless, I bring you Nia from Crystalized. Saying she was done dirty does not even begin to describe it. She is just there to do nothing but be a liability that holds everybody back. Guess this is to combat the overpowered sea goddess we saw at the end of Seabound by turning her back into a literal nobody.
What were they thinking?
However, that's just being generous in comparison to whatever the fuck they did with the Council of the Crystal King. They spent so much time bringing the Council together with previous villains, only to have them do nothing. Seriously, they pose no threat to the ninja. Heck, I could do a better job being an actual threat to Ninjago. I would also like to mention that the rest of the ninja are pointless and add little value to the season. All they do is sprout into butterflies and kick this demon's ass at the end, but I can't even take him seriously when I can barely understand anything he says. So Crystalized. Man, what a letdown. This season is just embarrassing, and these are just the tip of the iceberg of what makes it so bad. Honestly, what was the point of this season if all it did was waste my time? It's full of wasted opportunities, and is a great insult to this amazing franchise, especially Part 2, which forced me to turn off my brain to even remotely enjoy it. However, I haven't mentioned this one crucial component that is behind this catastrophe. You all better fasten your seatbelts because I'm going to get into what ultimately broke Crystalized and why this Ninjago finale is a failure.
Okay, here is the deal.
That's right. I've just been bullshitting this entire time. No way do I hate this season. I fucking love it. Crystalized is my favorite season from the Wild Brain era. This installment takes every aspect that the past 4 seasons have struggled with and improves upon it. The animation style has a tighter grip on its exaggerative energy and flowing vivacity mixed with precise pressure and weight. The art direction and cinematography is layered with the detail and depth needed to bring out both the vibrancy and atmosphere in its environments that Wild Brain visuals couldn't 100% accomplish with their shots till now. The humor has a greater sense of comedic timing that allows for a lot of the silliness and goofy charm to shine without disrupting the tone or being overbearing. The action is great in its ability to naturally escalate the tension and scale while showing off the dynamic power and stakes from its unique roster of set pieces. No episode is wasted because the season has a better understanding of how to match pacing and structure through its effortless capacity to simultaneously advance and flesh out the narrative. The story is very engaging because all the episodes are so purposeful and driven as they are packed with the necessary amount of conflict, drama, and action to keep me invested. What's most exciting about Crystalized is that it's filled with so many recognizable and familiar characters from the entire show, and yet miraculously manages to introduce a few new fun characters that left enough of a memorable impact. What's more surprising is, despite the massive cast, many of the characters do get a chance to shine with an admirable balance of spotlight they all receive, and have an interesting mix of interactions between each of them. Some of the best interactions came from the Council of the Crystal King. It was legitimately awesome and entertaining to see all the recurring villains together and how they bounced off with each other. Though it wasn't enough, I was still mostly satisfied seeing all the different rivalries and personalities on display, which is a testament to the distinction between every Ninjago villain and delivers plenty of fun moments from their chaotic dynamic.
The Overlord is bad news. For all of us. He will destroy everything.
Except us. That's why we joined him, genius.
But you don't have to worry. He won't destroy you.
We'll do that.
Speaking of villains, the Crystal King was threatening beyond my wildest expectations. Every line he uttered was so cold and menacing. His intimidating appearance and terrifying deep voice left a memorable impression. He commanded a frightening presence through his relentless crusade for corruption and dominating display of power. Even when he isn't on screen, his presence is still felt through his own council and Crystal Army. The Crystal King just crushes the role of being a powerful and unstoppable foe that is absolutely worthy of being Ninjago's biggest threat in the season's final battle. I guess Tommy didn't lie to me.
What was it you said to me the last time we fought? Yes.
Overlord?
It ends now.
However, what I most resonate with Crystalized is how the themes of community and identity unite the story and characters together. The entire season lays out the beautiful message that people are stronger together in overcoming darkness and rebuilding what's broken inside and around us, which is terrifically carried out through its various arcs and plot threads. With Crystalized being the last season for this Ninjago series, it makes sense for it to focus a lot on the original 4 Ninja, and it's very interesting to watch this classic ninja team go through a roller coaster of a journey. It is tragic to start off the season with this once inseparable group being split up and broken. As they are inevitably brought back together, the ninja faces new layers of conflict that really test their bond and loyalty to each other. Throughout the story, they confront the huge barrier between them regarding how they each coped with personal loss, constantly breaking the law to do what they believe is right, and fighting evil forces that seek to corrupt them. The audience is always on edge because no matter what the ninja do, everything keeps getting worse and falling apart, which makes the conflict so desperate and overwhelming. The ninja are facing so many incredible odds in such rapid succession that it really raises the stakes and greatly challenges their unyielding devotion to the people against the swift calamity. With defeat and failure at every turn, it is reassuring to see their unity still be unwavering. In spite of the overwhelming presence of darkness, it is very touching and heartwarming to watch the ninja rely on their faith and support in each other to overcome their greatest obstacles. Crystalized continues to put the ninja in perilous situations where they are made vulnerable and everything is against them. But no matter how unprepared they are, they never give up and stay strong together, which makes them such good role models and characters I keep rooting for.
Anyone have any last words?
If we do not survive this, I just want to say, I could not have asked for better friends. You have stood by me, and I by you. To the end.
To the end.
To the end.
To the end.
Out of all the ninja, Nya is the most down-to-earth and vulnerable member because she has no powers most of the time and struggles to realize her true strength in the team. Throughout Crystalized, Nya is forced to make difficult choices and accept the consequences of those decisions. This is what makes Nya's story so enriching because we get to see her journey constantly shift and study how she reacts to her choices of sacrifice, identity, and resilience. There is a great deal of focus on the psychological effects that Nya's decisions have on herself, with her isolation and separation from the ninja demonstrating her heavy insecurities with identity and confidence as she tries adjusting to the new changes. However, Nya's constant determination to achieve her highest potential as a result of encouragement and inner spirit makes her character arc very fascinating and even inspiring as she overcomes her internal obstacles.
That was my greatest fear. Losing my powers, becoming ordinary. But it's not anymore.
Isn't it? What is, then?
Losing my friends. And if being with them again means I have to give up my powers, then I'll find a way to do that.
While there are tons of compelling characters and story arcs in Crystalized, none are as nuanced and complex as Garmadon. With seasons 8 through 10 already establishing Garmadon as a deeply complicated character who struggles to comprehend any personal emotions outside of darkness and faces a significant paradigm shift regarding the beauty of life, his story comes full circle in Crystalized, as it explores the ramifications of those events. What sets this season apart from the rest of the show is how it focuses on the elaborate process of a former villain turning into a hero, naturally building off of what March of the Oni brilliantly set up for his character. It's just so fascinating watching Garmadon make an effort to actually be good and fully confront the humanity he has locked inside him. Having Garmadon lost whilst attempting to reach emotions he is not familiar with, as he gradually tries to understand compassion and rebuild his connection with his son, is all very compelling. He is still torn with how he expresses his good side and can easily slip back into his bad side, but there are plenty of sentimental moments that show us he does care and has truly changed, especially when he is with Lloyd. What's most satisfying about Garmadon's journey, a man who was previously so cold and heartless, is how Crystalized powerfully completes his arc by having him fully embrace compassion and his own humanity in the end.
I can't keep carrying you around forever. You're a plant. You should have roots. I once thought roots were a sign of weakness. But I was wrong. We are stronger together.
Throughout the season, Crystalized takes a lot of risks, but the decision to resurrect and redeem Harumi is arguably one of their biggest, considering her emotionally complex story in seasons 8 through 9 was already powerfully capped off with a fittingly tragic ending. However, the setup for her return was genius, as they first present her as a mysterious shadow with a sinister presence who serves to be a frightening foil for the ninja, like a ghost who haunts their every move, until her chilling reveal at which point she becomes a terrifying and looming figure that comes straight out of Lloyd's nightmares. Once she is truly back, Harumi is still the same conniving and vengeful antagonist that we know her to be. However, Crystalized adds another complicated element that profoundly expands her character, but remains naturally consistent with her unbalanced nature. There is a heavy focus on her twisted parasitic relationship with Lloyd, which shows her sadistic and psychopathic side, yet she desperately clings to her remaining attachments, tragically highlighting how much of a broken person she truly is, who is far too consumed by rage and fear to stop, but far too alone to let go. Through that fresh recontextualization, Harumi is an unstable and destructive character who cannot let go of her resentment and despair, but holds a masked desire for personal connection, which is the compelling center of her conflict, where she is torn between maintaining the only stable connections in her life or abandoning those strong attachments in favor of satisfying her destructive obsession. This gripping study of Harumi's damaged state devastatingly challenges her with a dramatic choice between fear and anger or empathy and hope, cleverly embodied through the Crystal King and Lloyd Garmadon. While the execution is a little slippery at points, Crystalized still succeeds in continuing Harumi's story as a rich and complicated character, despite being undercooked, where this wonderfully complex and layered antagonist is naturally pushed into recognizing the value of compassion as a strength rather than a weakness.
After I lost my parents, I felt so alone. Now it's your turn to feel that grief. You can let it overwhelm and destroy you, or you can let it harden and strengthen you.
Throughout the series, Ninjago hasn't shied away from exploring the insecurities and fallibility of the powerful Green Ninja. So Lloyd Garmadon has always been a compelling and likable protagonist throughout his 10 years of development, but he receives his most bold arc yet in Crystalized, because he has faced all sorts of obstacles in the past, such as trauma, faith, and trust, but never has he confronted his darker roots that has surrounded him his entire life. This is the next logical step for his story, because he needs to finally face the fact that he is the son of Lord Garmadon and a descendant of the demonic Oni. With the radical reintroduction of Harumi and Garmadon, he is suddenly forced to confront the darkness he has buried inside him as they actively try to bring out the worst in him, leading to an intriguing struggle of Lloyd balancing his good and bad side, which is made worse when there is great pressure for him to embrace his dark Uni side to possibly stand a better chance against the Crystal Army. This presents him with the challenging choice of sacrificing who he is for the greater good or turning back to remain as who he is before it is too late. Not to mention the additional worries of turning into a heartless monster like his father, or feeling so helpless to protect all the people he cares about. This creates so much unease and anxiety surrounding his character, especially when his erratic behavior is on display and grows increasingly intense with his bottled up rage and irrational outbursts. So it is very heartbreaking to watch this once hopeful and inspiring leader being desperately consumed by his fear and being pushed to his greatest limit. The season even elevates that conflict to another level when he makes impulsive and reckless actions that paint him in a more negative light as a result of his agitated behavior, adding greater tension and uncertainty over his mental state. However, this risky characterization never becomes out of character, because his intense reaction to such an extreme dilemma is very realistic in the context of the story, while bringing riveting interest to the immense turmoil he carries throughout the journey. Lloyd's flaws and vulnerability in Crystalized help display the struggles people can face when being forced to confront their deepest insecurities. But his choice to actively demonstrate his maturity and goodness, while greatly at odds with his fear and anxiety, effectively shows his true strength of character and reinforces why Lloyd is a strong character people can resonate with. Lloyd's heart and spirit outshining his darkness is all powerfully encompassed through his profound belief that no matter how tough life can get, He should never sacrifice who he is because there is always another way to do what is right.
I'd rather be gullible than deceitful. I'd rather choose to see the good in people than the bad. All you have inside you is hate and anger and fear.
Even with the immense cast and stacked character roster, Crystalized never lost sight of the real heart of the season. Now, it wasn't Wu or Garmadon, it wasn't Lloyd, and it wasn't even the ninja. The citizens were at the center of this story. The average ordinary people were the most vital and key component of Crystalized, as they influenced the characters' actions and drove the plot forward through their words and solidarity. This season providing the people with meaningful agency is nothing short of brilliant, because it cleverly switches up their dynamic with the ninja, where it adds greater layers of purpose to the protagonists' roles as protectors, while rewarding them for their extensive history of heroism. It is also refreshing to see the people have significant power in the conflict, and be given the chance to greatly contribute to the story. Their impact as a community can be seen from beginning to end, because they are responsible for bringing the ninja back together and saving Ninjago simply by coming together, which is very poetic. The community being the heart of Crystalized is thematically powerful, because it shows that power isn't exclusive to special abilities, but to individuals who demonstrated courage, resilience, spirit, and unity. To save the world, it doesn't take a man to do so, it takes a people. Ninjago Crystalized is an extremely ambitious story that sets out to please the fans with an incredible narrative that delivers meaningful conclusions to every era of Ninjago. While the execution is a little flimsy at times, the momentous storytelling allows me to be enchanted with the fan service and leaves me captivated by the spectacle, but it never loses sight of its heart, because I still feel the personal and vulnerable connection to the characters, as I deeply resonate with its themes of love and unity. I can't deny that Crystalized does occasionally stumble with dialogue, screen time, and odd character choices, but that doesn't affect the sincerity in this installment, because there is immense passion present for this season by the writers, animators, actors, etc. that make me greatly appreciate it. Not everything is gold, but Crystalized really shines as one of the best Ninjago seasons, through its genuine craft, enthusiastic ambition, and intimate heart that all result in a beautiful send-off for this classic series.